Hello. This week, as promised, I'm going to have a look at making some terrain using the plants that I got last week from Temu. So, before we can start doing anything with these plants that we've got, I've grabbed some more of the foam that's left over from my workshop build, and I've used some of the MDF cut-offs that you perhaps saw me sorting the other week, and I've just fashioned them roughly into the shape that I want them on there for the plants to stick into. And I thought I'd make, I don't know, kind of a jungle environment on some of these, and just see where we go with it, really. Just want to show you how easy it is to use these plants. So basically all I've got to do first of all is take this backing paper off and stick these down. Right, so now that these are all dried, they're nice and solid, I'm going to do something I do quite often with these, is I've mixed up a little bit of all-purpose filler. Doesn't have to be anything special, I just got this from a pound store, and some just old-fashioned PVA. There's no exact mix. I do tend to put in, I would say, 2/3 plaster, a third PVA, sometimes drifting towards 50-50, but I think this time the PVA is about a third. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this onto this to make the edges nice and smooth out to nothing. But first of all, I'm just going to have to, lop some on, and then smooth it out to how I need it. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to dab it with this brush, because I don't want painted on looking contours on it. I want it to look more like soil and, debris and whatever. So I'm just tapping it over. That's what it's looking like. I'm fairly satisfied with that. Alright, so I'm going to do the same process to the rest of these now, so they can all be drying at once. Just put that there. Right, I'll bring you back when that's done. Right, so now that these have set hard, the next thing is I want to paint it up, obviously with a brown colour, to obliterate the white. But what I'm going to do, it just adds to the strength, and also I can use it to bond the scatter that I'm going to use on these. Is I'm going to mix some of this matte Mod Podge with basically a simple cheap brown acrylic paint, nothing special, and paint that on. And then while it's still wet, I'm actually going to put some different bits of scatter on. I don't think I'll need any more than that. You can never judge it right, can you? No doubt too much. Right, now we just want to colour it up. See what comes out like. Give it a good stir. Right. You want it on fairly thick because you want it to sink down into all the little grooves. One thing you don't want is any of the white showing. I promise we will get to the plant part eventually. No, you've got to make the bases up first though, haven't you? So I haven't got anything specific in mind for these. I just wanted to demonstrate how I can use the plants. I wouldn't necessarily use them all this way either, to be fair, because, you know, I do use individual plants cut short. You know, you could have them as crops in a field, you know, so you don't have to confine, I mean, you know, you don't have to confine yourself to just making jungle pieces. There's loads of things you can make with it, you know, just individual little bits. Can be plants or shrubs in a garden or on the outside of a building or even in plant pots and stuff. So, but I thought this would probably be the most dramatic way to show you it being used. Right. While that's still wet, I'm going to have a look at some of the different types of scatter I'm going to use on it. Now, for a long time, I've got stuff that I've made myself. I've got some coffee grounds from coffees that I've dried out. Tea bags, they're pretty good. Look like dead leaves and things. This is quite good. I got into, not that one, this one. I was into drinking green tea. And that comes out with a really good mixture when you break it up and dry it out. I've used this as woodland paths as well in the past. Anyway, I'm going to I think I'll start with a bit of that. Been sitting here for ages, I haven't used this, so one thing we use in old teas and things on your terrain pieces is you'll have the nicest smelling terrain pieces out there. Right. Let's just lift that up and let you have a look at it. I will put some more stuff on there as well, but this is just built up that first layer of material. Well, I can leave that to one side to dry now. What I'll do is I'll crack on and do the rest of these straight ones, and when I come to the circles and the big one I'll bring you back. Right, so that's done all those rectangle ones. Now I'm going to have a look at my circular ones. Same thing, coating them with the brown Mod Podge. Go. And what I'm going to use on this one is I'm going to use my tea leaves on the circular ones. That's what that one's looking like. It's quite a good soil, really, dried tea leaves. I mean, the green tea is good because it does have that bit of, you know, like the green colour still in it. So that looks like dying vegetation. The tea leaves work more effectively as soil, but nevertheless you can see the leaf shapes in it, so it's clear that it was vegetation. Let's just put a bit more, see a bit of a shiny gap there. That's it. Right, so I'll crack on and get the rest of those done, and then I'll bring you back for the square one that I'm doing, and we'll try a different material. Right, just to keep the theme going on this square one, we'll coat it again, and I'll use my coffee grounds this time. So all three I've had the pleasure of drinking. The smell of all these teas, I think I could do with a cup an hour. When it all dries out, you know, I'll probably give it a spray with some water damp PVA. I might even add a few other little bits, you know, just to break up the one set pattern, you know, put some other materials down. But I'll see when I come to it. At the minute, just want to get this stage done. There's something satisfying about using things that you've recycled rather than paid for. I don't know what it is, but I mean, all I've done, don't really take much explaining, is, you know, ripped open a used tea bag, tipped it all out on a baking tray and dried it out in the oven. And then when it was nice and dry, you can leave it out on a sunny day, but finding one of them in Britain, well, probably best with the oven. But that's what I've done with all of them, really. Right, let's have a look at these coffee grounds. These are interesting because they've got you know, different textures and things in them as well, which you'll see when I've scattered it. Oh, I was fancying a cup of tea, but I don't know why, but I'm suddenly getting the sensation I could do with a coffee. Time for a tea break, I think. Bring that closer up so you can have a look. You can see the different flecks in it. You know, it's not just all brown. Again, it works really well as, you know, like dead vegetation. I missed a bit there, look. That's better. Ooh, a bit on that side. There we go. Right, I'm going to set them to dry, tidy up all this bit, and we'll have a look at the next stage. So, we can, while we're waiting for them to dry, we can turn our attention to, you know, what plants we're going to use. And what I'm going to be doing with these is I'm going to be cutting a few bits that I like the look of. I'm going to stick them in these offcuts. I might even need a few more. And then I'm going to prepare them for when I need them for the actual, you know, bases. Right, start with this one. Let's have a look. Think about how tall you want it as well. Obviously that's going to be based on whatever figures you're using. I want this to be probably one of my higher ones, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out there to start with. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin out some of these bottom branches. I shan't throw these away though, because they'll come in handy for something. See, they'll make little plants in their own right. Trim off that. So I'm going to use that one as a, bend them a bit into shape as well. So that's going to be a good, like, central. Stick it in this one. Might need a little. the first one. I think we can do with a few more of that one. Again, I'll cut off the lower. Push this out a bit. There we go, another one. Got to space these out a bit. I'll explain why later. They look pretty good as they are, but I do want to knock them down a bit, you know, to make them look a little bit less plastic, which is what we're going to be setting out to do now when I've cut enough plants. I'll do a few more of these on camera, and then I'll get a few done off camera and then bring you back and show you what I've cut. You don't want to just be sitting watching me snipping away at these one by one. The good thing about these type plants is you don't have to just take the top bits. I mean, you can see where I've cut these off. There's still plants beneath it. It's endless supply, really. Push it out a bit. Right. I'll get a few more done of a few different varieties and then I'll bring you back. So I've selected various bits of the different plants that I got in my plastic plant collection, and I'm not sure whether I'll use all of these or whether I'll even need more. I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to go ahead and prepare these, and by preparing them, what I'm thinking of doing, I've done it before and it's worked well for me, is I use some of this matte varnish. Mine's Army Painter, but any matte varnish will do. I'm not going to, you know, go mad on it. I'm just going to give them a light mist of it, you know, turn them round, make sure I've got both sides. And that's basically to just knock down that shininess that plastic has. But the other reason for it is it'll give a little bit more for the next process to adhere to, because what I'll do then is on some of them I'll add some washes, you know, just to, I don't know, give it more life look. So, you know, I have got some green washes, but I'll use brown washes as well. I mean, you can mix up any wash really and use on this, and I'll do that while they're all in position like this. But first of all, I'm going to go outside, give them a blast of this, let them dry, and then when they are thoroughly dry, I'll come back and I'll show you putting on the washes. Again, you don't have to completely smother them, it's just enough, you know, to give it a bit more realism. Right, the varnish is dry, it didn't really take long. As I say, it's just knocked it down a tiny bit. It's probably not going to pick it up on the camera, but they've just got that slightly less shiny look now. And I'm just going to experiment with some green wash at the moment. I've picked a nice soft brush for applying this, because I just want it to sponge through it and catch it. I'm not trying to paint it all, because no, I think that's just too laborious. But just get a nice splash of it here and there on it, and it gives a bit of variation to the leaves. There we go. So you can see how that one's starting to take it. I'm not gone mad. I don't want to overkill this. There's no need. They're not a bad plastic plant that I've selected. To be fair, there are some that look a lot worse than this, a lot more plasticky and shiny and unrealistic. These are pretty good. But you know, if you're not happy when you've done them, obviously if you only put a little bit on, you can add a bit more if you want to. But I'm pleased enough with that. That's starting to look a little bit more natural. Certainly if you compare it to this one, look. And it'll only get better as it dries. Right, so I'm going to carry on brushing some of this on to the other ones. Right, I've gone through them all now. I've given them all a variety of green washes, really. In the end, I stayed away from the brown. I didn't really need it. I've got plenty of brown in the bases that I've used. It's one of them things, really. You can keep going with this and, you know, do as much as you want. But I think I'm fairly satisfied with how they are. If you wanted a different tone, you, like I say, just use a different wash. And it's just a question of sometimes after you've done it, you know, when you've moved on to another plant, you go back and it's started to pool, like in this one a bit. And what I do is I just, while it's still wet, I'll just get the brush on it and brush those pooling bits out of it. It doesn't matter with some of them. You know, there's some where it's dried and it looks like a black spot on the leaf. And to be honest, you get black spots on the leaves, so it's all very well and good. But anything too obvious, it's best to just go back, give it a bit of a vigorous brushing, and you'll get all those bits off. Because what you don't want is a big pool, because it tends to sit there and then go shiny, and that's going to ruin the look. So as it starts to dry, just go back over it with a dry brush, and it'll get rid of all them pooling bits. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let them dry. I'm still waiting for the bases to dry, so when they're ready, I'll bring you back. These were all but dry, but I had a bit of a change of heart with these 4 ones, because I'm thinking of breaking these down into 2 sets. So I'll keep the 6 circular ones as one set, and these, the 4 long ones and the square one, as another set. So what I've done is I've overdressed these with a bit more coffee ground so they match the square one, and I'm leaving the others with the tea. I've left, I mean, obviously the green tea's still there, but I've mixed and matched it in a bit now. But the final thing that I want to do to all of them really is I've got this leaf litter, and I'm just going to drop this on dry initially, just a very thin amount of it. I just think it'll, you know, you're not going to see much of it because it's going to be under the shrubs and that, but the bits you can see, it'll just give something else to look at. So I'm just loosely scattering it on. That's all. I'm not going to do any more than that really. That'll do. What I need to do is give it another douse of the isopropanol. I've given these a good soak now. What I'm going to do now is let them dry. If I think it needs any more, I'll add a little bit, but I'm pretty happy with just that amount. It's just a case of letting these thoroughly dry now, and then we can start building them up. So I'll bring you back then. So before it all dried out yesterday on these, I've added a sprinkle of like leaf scatter. I've gone for some lighter leaf scatter on this one to mix in with the leaf litter that I added. And then on the round ones I've gone for a slightly darker leaf scatter. It's just really to give it that bit more of a, you know, undergrowth feeling. And what I'm going to be doing now is kind of, you know, estimating how big I want things and sizing them up. And I've cut this first one down because I'm thinking, you know, like an average soldier's, you know, it's going to be, you know, if you're playing bolt action, it's 28mm. So, you know, I've gone for perhaps 3 times the height of a soldier as being the first bit. I mean, I might go a little bit higher, but on this first one I thought I'd do that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little hand drill to gently drill a hole where I want to place it. Then I'm going to dip it in this neat PVA and feed that into the hole and let it dry. And obviously I'm going to be fiddling around with this a little bit because you know, you kind of got to see what looks right. So anyway, let's just press on with the first one and see how we go. With this being a reasonably tall tall leaf, I'm going to go quite central with it. Take that bottom leaf off. Need a bit of tissue, get yourself set up properly. And what I'm going to do is just feed it into that hole. Not going to bother too much about the glue at the minute. I'll smooth that out as I go along, but that's like the first one in place. Right. Let's go for one of these bushier ones. Second one in place. Want a nice bit of variety really, but at the same time don't want it to look like it's a line-up, so I'm going to mix and match in a little bit as well. Another one of these ones in there. What I need to do, and that's a good point really, is to turn round, because obviously you want this to face right in both directions, so you know, busy looking at it from that direction, look, but then it's not going to look as powerful that side, so from time to time I'm just going to turn it round and add things from the other view. a little bit close for you to have a look at. So that's how it's starting to look. I'm trying to, you know, keep it so it bushes out in all directions, really. There it is. Right, I'm going to call that one done. As you can see, it looks pretty good from both sides. Just a question of letting it dry now. I think what I'm going to do is just take that top twig out a little bit. There we go, that's better. Alright, so we just let that dry and I'll start building up the others. Right, I'll get a few done and then I'll bring you back. Right, so I've done that first set. As you can see, I've gone through quite a few of my plants now. Hoping I've got enough left. But these are not going to be so heavily decorated anyway. I just want them to be like suggestions of what's to come when you go into the thicker stuff. So we'll start with this one. Cutting quite a few of these, the stalks right down, because I think it looks better when the foliage is coming right from the bottom on these. Like that look. It just looks more effective that way. As I say, I'm not going to overkill these because I don't want too much on it. Right, which should we go? No, we'll have one of these cut down. Because I've made use of the ones that I've cut back. I've made use of them by snipping a point to the top to make it look like a smaller plant growing. The important thing is, like I said before, is to, you know, constantly turn the base around so you know you're not just dressing it up to be looked at from one direction. I've always wanted to experiment with this jungle terrain because, you know, obviously whenever I've picked up one of these plastic plants, it is the first thing you think of, because obviously you're normally presented with a big bushy plant and you think, oh, that'd look good as a jungle. I mean, most of the time I've cut them down and used them as tiny plants. But I must admit, doing these, it's almost making me want to build a Far East army, but I've got to resist it. Can't keep buying. Right, so that's... I think I'm going to leave that one at that. Well, I'm going to leave it for now. I might come back and put something small down there, but for now, that'll do. Right, I'll just get the rest of these done off camera and I'll bring you back. Right, so they're all complete. As I say, I envisaged them really as a set, you know, like so. You know, the four straight ones and the square together, and then these 6 round ones. But I think they've come out quite well. And when you think about it, these have cost me, you know, not very much really, because the plants, like I say, I got a whole batch, and you know how much more I've got for tenner. The bases were offcuts and some circular bases that I had, so I hadn't had to go out for that. And then I've used tea and coffee grounds on these. Bit of scatter maybe, mainly thyme. But I think they make quite a nice little set. And to be honest, it's the first time I've had a go at doing a jungle one. I've thought about it plenty of times, but I've never done it. And I must admit, I enjoyed doing that. So, you know, watch this space. I did promise my wife I won't be buying any more armies after the 2 that I've got waiting. But now I'm starting to get that itch, don't you, that you want you just want to get into it. But I'm running out of space for armies, so I've got to stop. Anyway, that's them complete. What I'll do now is I haven't got any jungle backdrop to put these against, so I'll just have to make do with what backdrops I've got. And I'll set them up and take some pictures, and we can have a look at them as we close this week's video. Right, back in a minute. Right, so here they are. Not a very appropriate backdrop, I admit, but it's better than nothing, isn't it? But yeah, on the whole, I've really enjoyed making these, and my little value £10 order from Temu was well worth it in the end, and it looks good with the soldiers set against it as well. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting, useful, perhaps something give you some ideas. If you have enjoyed it, you know, as I always say, please give us a thumbs up or even think about subscribing. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.